There were sometimes there was going to come some point in your life where no matter how much you hear, no matter how much preaching you consume, no matter how many testimonies you absorb, at some point in your life, you're going to have an encounter where you have to see it for yourself. God has to show you something that encourages your faith that you could not have without that experience. And so it wasn't enough for them to hear. They had to see it for themselves. The stone did not contain Jesus. But without it being open, without them being able to visualize, they couldn't have made the connections that what Jesus had spoken early in his ministry has now come to pass. Some of you right now who are listening to this message, you don't even realize that you are on the cusp of seeing something for yourself because God knows in what areas your faith needs to be encouraged. And because you ain't been getting what you need from listening to everybody. You ain't been getting something. You ain't been getting fed and you ain't been full lately. It's been a long time since you done felt like you've been full. Well, it's because God's going to show you something because in your seeing something different, you get a chance to make connections about what God has already said. The stone was rolled away. They went and they took looks. And when they looked in, they didn't see a mess. They didn't see a stench. It was neat in there. I love the way Jesus did this. It wasn't a terrifying, traumatic experience. It was clean in there. It's almost like, watch this, it's almost like Jesus came here temporarily and the sepulcher was just a suite he used because he wasn't going to stay there. It being folded, the stuff being folded is to say, I no longer need this. It's going to be neatly folded, it's going to be in order, but I no longer need this. When Jesus got up, he left evidence that he was there. What he went in with, there was traces still there. So you knew that he was there. There was still some evidence. I'm simply saying this, that Jesus knows what to leave a trail of evidence so that when you would have the temptation to doubt him, you've got proof that he was there. What covered his face was there. His clothes were there folded up, but he wasn't there. What he died in, what he was buried in is not what he resurrected in. Come on, church. Church, are you getting this morning? What they used to bury him was not the clothes he wore when he was resurrected. You don't need the same attire you went down in when you get up. Jesus left everything that was part of that experience was left in the sepulcher. And when he rose in power. And he did so that we might believe. Mary stood there. I'm gonna tell you how deep this was. They go to the sepulcher, they see this, and when the disciples leave, Mary stays there and she's crying and she's weeping. Y'all, this is getting good to me. She is weeping because in her head, somebody has taken Jesus away. And when she's crying, she looks in again and she sees two angels, one at the head and one at the foot of where Jesus was. And they ask her a question, why are you weeping? And she gets a chance to explain why she's concerned and why she's crying, because she believed that somebody took Jesus away. As she is doing this, she turns around and Jesus asks her a question about why she's crying. And this is a very interesting thing because she had seen and been with Jesus for enough time. Certainly she should have been able to recognize him. Certainly should have. I mean, she's been with him. She's been with Jesus. She should have been able to recognize him. She's crying over Jesus and does not know that Jesus is talking to her. Yo, this is getting good to me. She is weeping because she thinks that they have taken Jesus away and Jesus is talking to her. And as Jesus is talking to her, she makes the assumption that this must be one of the men who takes care, of the sepulchres. This must be one of the workers. And as I started to examine the scripture, I'm sitting here like God, how is it possible that this person who had been with you for all this time could not resurrect you? And then a whole cliche came to me. A whole cliche came to me. Y'all know how we say, I don't look like what I've been through? For Jesus to be talking to Mary and for her not to recognize it was him, it must have looked like Jesus didn't look like what he went through. For him to rise again and for her not to recognize him, something had to occur. I love how God does this. They saw how he goes down and how he is severely whipped and how he is severely beaten, and she doesn't recognize she's talking to the very one she's crying over. Because when Jesus, when he got up, he had already prophesied it was going to happen. They were crying about something that Jesus already told how it was going to end. She's talking, and as she begins to talk, and Jesus begins to speak to her and call her by her name. It's only through conversation that she recognizes who recognizes who Jesus is. It is through him asking her questions and her giving her response that she finally recognizes through Jesus speaking who he was. Sometimes your mind can be so focused on the fact that she was so focused that Jesus was gone, her mind was stuck on him being dead, that she couldn't even recognize the fact that he was alive. Sometimes you can be so focused on the tragedy you saw that you don't know when triumph is talking to you. Come on here, church. Sometimes you can be so focused on the traumatic experience you went through, you don't know when victory is having a conversation with you. It is until Jesus keeps on speaking to her that she recognizes Jesus, not based on how he looks, but based on the words he is speaking. So Jesus gets up, and when she recognizes him, she wants to start touching him. But Jesus tells her, I'm not ready for you to touch, I haven't yet ascended yet, but I want you to go back and tell my disciples. And here's the message for us today. Sometimes God has to allow us to see something because he's calling you to go tell somebody. And this is why if you ever meet one of those people who, when they start talking about Jesus and they start talking about his goodness, he's like they flip on a switch, and once that switch is turned on, they can't turn it off. It is because when you had an encounter with Jesus, you recognize that your responsibility is not to keep that to yourself. I have to go tell somebody. I've got to let people know that I saw something. I got to let them know that I saw him. You can't take what I saw. You can't take away this experience. Jesus tells this woman, I want y'all to hear what I'm trying to tell you, church. Jesus tells this woman to go tell the disciples. He tells Mary to go tell the disciples